Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Natapar Ji ki. Thank you so much, dear devotees, for very kindly coming for this very wonderful Sunday feast organized by ISKCON of Columbus at the most holy lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Natapar, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai, and Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra, and ultimately at the lotus feet of all the Acharyas, and mainly at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. Before we get started, let us chant the Mangalacharan prayers, seek auspiciousness from our spiritual superiors like Srila Prabhupada, and then get started. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurage Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. All together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai. Very happy to be back at the service of all the devotees at ISKCON of Columbus. And in fact, in the last 1 year, I think I was there last Kartik, and then we all came, Saha Kutumba, whole Parivar came, whole family came in April, and then again now in the month of September. So very happy that Shri Shri Radha Natapar has called again for the service of all the devotees. Before I begin, I want to offer my respectful obeisances at the lotus feet of all the devotees present here. Please bless me, please pray for me, so that I am able to serve all of you all in the right spirit and in the right mood of being the servant of the servant of the servant. Please accept my very humble obeisances. Vancha kalpatarobhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo we see that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this whole of Srimad Bhagavatam is primarily a conversation between two personalities. We have Shukadev Goswami on one side, and then we have the king, Maharaj Parikshit, who was ready to give up everything, his kingdom, his family, his wealth, absolutely everything, to sit on the banks of Ganga, one-pointed, and hear Krishna Katha. And very few times we find that a person who possesses every material aspect, all the material attributes that people are looking out for, very few times we find they are ready to give up everything and hear Krishna Katha. Very few. And in English, we see there is a very famous saying, like father, like son. Jaisa baap, vaisa beta. Like father, like son. But in the case of Parikshit Maharaj, it was a little different. Parikshit Maharaj was very devoted, very inclined to hear Krishna Katha. But his son was a little different. What is the name of his son? Janamejaya. Now Janamejaya was very different. The father was very much interested to hear Krishna Katha, but the son, Janamejaya, was least interested. He was not interested to hear Krishna Katha. Now devotees are very intelligent. Krishna Bhakta ei bada chatur, or at least they are supposed to be intelligent. Devotees of the Lord are very intelligent. So Vaishampayana Muni was called. That Janamejaya is not hearing Krishna Katha, you do something. You are very intelligent, very scholarly. Do whatever it takes, but get him to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. So Vaishampayana Muni came and he just said 2 words. Because when the person is not in a position to hear Katha, you cannot speak Bhagavatam. When there is no hunger, even if you keep Chappan Bhog, the person will not eat. The hunger has to be there. So Janamejaya was least interested. So Vaishampayana Muni came and just said 2 words. Please repeat first, Vanabhangam, and second, Goharanam. First is Vanabhangam and second is Goharanam. So Vaishampayana Muni, when he said these 2 words, Janamejaya said, oh, what do they mean? What is Vanabhangam and what is Goharanam? So Vaishampayana Muni explained. Vanabhangam, Vana means forest and Bhanga means to destroy. So he explained as to how Hanuman went to Ashokvan and destroyed the whole of Ashokatika, the whole of Ashokvan. And from Goharanam, he explained as to how the cows of Maharaj Virata were stolen and Arjuna went and reclaimed them back. So what was the first word? Vanabhanga. What was the second? Goharanam. Now, Vaishampayana Muni said these 2 words and explained them in one sentence. Now the thirst increased in the heart of Janamejaya. He said, well, don't just stop here. Say something more. So from Vanabhangam, Vaishampayana Muni ended up explaining the whole of Ramayana. He started with 1 line. That is how Hanuman set the whole thing on fire. And then Pura Ramayana suna diya. Full Ramayana was told. And then now from Goharanam, he explained the whole of Mahabharata. So it started with 1 word, then 1 sentence, then the whole book. The whole book was explained. And now Janamejaya, who was least interested, ended up not just hearing Krishna Katha, but he ended up hearing even Ram Katha. He ended up hearing Ram Katha and Mahabharata. Very interesting. I was recently at one place in South Carolina and I was making this point as to how Goharanam and Vanabhangam and as to how Maharaj Virata, his cows were stolen. So at the end, one small boy, he came to me, 6-7 years old, he came to me and said that Prabhuji, Virat had cows? So I said, yeah, he had cows. He said, oh, in the TV I always see him with a bat. I said, not Virat Kohli. I said, not Virat Kohli, Maharaj Virat. Sincerely he asked me, I couldn't even, I was thinking, my goodness. India is in such a sad state, cricket is more famous than Mahabharata. He was convinced that I was talking about Virat Kohli sitting on the Vyasas. I had to tell him that name is same, personalities are different. He has cows, he has bat. So very interesting. So 2 words were said, Vanabhangam and Goharanam. And now The son of Parikshit, who was initially least interested, now ends up becoming devotional. Starts hearing, starts chanting. So, preaching is always an art. Like in Hindi they say, those who are from India, जब घी सीधी उंगली से ना निकले, उंगली टेढ़ी करनी पड़ती है. When straightforward preaching doesn't work, sometimes we have to modify a little. So Vaishampayana Muni used his intelligence, started with one word, made that into one sentence, and then it blossomed into a complete scripture in itself. So this point is made that sometimes there is a difference. Like the saying is like father, like son, but may not be always applicable. And Shastra is replete with examples. It has so many examples. Hiranyakashipu, demon. Son, Mahajan. Prahlad's son, Virochan, demon. Virochan's son, Bali, Mahajan, Mahabhagavat. So, father is demoniac, son is divine, his son is demoniac, his son is divine. One time one son went to his father and he said that, my dear father, Shri Ram became great by following the instructions of his father Dasharath Maharaj. And Prahlad Maharaj became great by not following the instructions of his father Hiranyakashipu. My dear father, what should I do? Should I follow you or not? I mean, sometimes children come up with such logical questions. Ram became great by following his father. And Prahlad became great by not following his father. So my dear father, what should I do? Father was also very intelligent. He said, my dear son, we are not living in Satya Yuga, nor are we living in Treta Yuga, but we are living in Kali. And in Kali, it is good for both of us that we follow your mother. So that there is mental peace in the home. My goodness, these kids, they come up with so many valid questions. Kya kare? Father is also intelligent. To maintain grahastha atmosphere, follow the mother. The Matajis are thinking, this is the best thing we have heard from the time we joined Krishna consciousness. So we find that Krishna consciousness, this is a very sweet path, a very sweet process. And unfortunately, 500 years in the past, prior to the appearance of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it was a sad state. People were into worshipping of Durga, Chandi, and Karmakanda, and Advaita Acharya, his heart would bleed. He would think only if the Supreme Lord comes down and he preaches, then the whole Nadia can transform. So Advaita Acharya would serve classes. Gita Bhagavata kahe Acharya Gosai, Jnana Karma Nindi kare Bhaktira Bhadai. Kaviraj Goswami Chaitanya Charitamrita describes Gita Bhagavata kahe Acharya Gosai. Advaita Acharya would speak Gita and Bhagavat. He would give classes. Jnana Karma Nindi kare. He would speak about the flaws of Jnana Marg and Karma Marg. Bhaktira Badai, but he would extol the glories of Bhakti. And this Krishna katha, which is already sweet, now you can imagine the katha that is already sweet, when it is presented by Advaita Acharya, how sweet that katha will be. What will be the atmosphere when the katha which is already sweet is presented by the best among personalities in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. The personality who invoked Gauranga Mahaprabhu down to this world is now speaking katha. So we can imagine what the power will be. And we find Shukadev Goswami in the section of Rukmini in the 10th canto, 10:52-20. He explains the glories, the qualities of Krishna Katha. Brahman Krishna Katha Punya Madhvi Loka Malapaha Konu Tripeta Shrunvanam Shrutagya Nitya Nutanaha. Three qualities: Brahman Krishna Katha Punya. The first quality of Krishna Katha is it is Punya, it is pure. And of this there is no doubt. Anyone who comes in this current of all pure Krishna Katha, purity is guaranteed. But, you see, when you take life insurance policy and all those things, everything will be written in bold, but down below some small ant-like alphabet will be written which you cannot even see. So similarly, Krishna Katha is sweet, it is pure, but there is terms and condition. If it needs to apply in our lives, if we want to take effect, then the terms and condition is the sincerity should be there. The intention of becoming pure should be there. If the intention of hearing Krishna Katha is not to become pure, then the purification will take time. What is the example? Dhritarashtra Maharaj. Dhritarashtra Maharaj heard the same Bhagavad Gita, same verses, real time from Sanjaya, who was also very exalted. But what was the intention? The intention was not purification. The intention was simply to understand what is happening to his sons. So, he got purification, but the purification came after a very long time. Another example, Keshav Kashmiri. Knew all the Shastra. Big time Digvijay Pandit, very scholarly. But he got humility after humiliation. After he got humiliated, then he got humility. So the point I'm trying to make is, if the purpose of hearing Krishna Katha is not purification, then the purification takes time. And these two are prime examples. And there are many examples that Shastra comes up with. But if the intention is one pointed to become pure, then Krishna Katha acts very fast. So what is the first quality? Krishna Katha is punya, it is pure. Second, madhvi, it is very sweet. Krishna Katha is very sweet. We see medicines of this world are so bitter. If the medicine to cure deha rog, the disease of the body, is so bitter, how damn bitter should the medicine be to cure the disease of bhava rog, repeated birth and death? It should be so bitter, right? If the medicine to cure body is bitter, the medicine to cure bhava rog, repeated birth and death, should be so bitter. But interestingly, we find Krishna Katha is not bitter, it is sweet. And what is the praman, what is the proof it is sweet? All of us sitting here. If Krishna Katha was boring, then we will not make endeavors to come to the temple and hear. There is some sweetness that we have got in Krishna Katha which is impelling us and magnetizing us to come to the lotus feet of Shri Radha Natavar. So the first quality of Krishna Katha is it is punya. It is very pure. Second, madhvi. It is very sweet. And third, lokamalapaha. Krishna Katha. Krishna as Krishna Katha enters the heart of the listener and starts cleaning. Cheto darpanam archanam. He starts cleaning vigorously. And the loka mala. Mala means dirt. Like we have famous Kirtaniya. Amal Harinam Prabhu. Mala means dirt. Amala, no dirt. Bhagavatam is called as Amala Puran. Spotless. No dirt, no contamination, no adulteration. So, Lokamalapa, Krishna as Krishna Katha enters and starts cleaning and kidnaps the sins. Apaha, apaharan karna. He kidnaps the sins that are there. And Krishna is one of the best among thieves. The stealing, the lying, the cheating, whatever Krishna does is best. As Bilva Mangala Thakur says, Vraje prasedham navaneta choram gopangananam chadukula choram aneka janmarjita papa choram choragraganyam purusham namami. Even though Kartik is approaching, we are in the mood of Purushottamas. So Bilva Mangala Thakur very beautifully says, Vraje prasidham navanita choram. The Supreme Lord, in whichever incarnation he comes, he steals. When he comes as Ram, he steals the complexion. We not just have human beings in the audience, we have some special personalities here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Is it the same one that we used to? I would have been traumatized. I trust you, but I know I glorified Parikshit, but oh Krishna. Huh? So, Bilamangala Thakur says, my dear Lord, when you come as Ram, you steal the complexion of the grass. When you come as Krishna, you steal the complexion of the cloud. And between the grass and the cloud, where are people running behind? Gold. So, my dear Lord, in Kali, you have stolen the complexion of gold also. You have stolen the complexion in all the three yugas. Treta, Dwapar and Kali. As Sri Ram, Sri Krishna and Gauranga Mahaprabhu. My dear Lord, I beg you. Now as Krishna Katha, please enter my heart and steal the dirt. I will consider you a thief. Well, you stole in the previous yugas, it is okay. I didn't see it. I will consider you a big time thief if you enter my heart and can steal my sins away. So very beautifully, sarcastically, he's using a satire to glorify the Lord and kind of challenging the Lord that my dear Lord, enter my heart and clean the dirt. So Krishna Katha is very sweet. And now Advaita Acharya is presenting this Krishna Katha. And this nectar we find Prabhupada has given in his books. And that is why Prabhupada would always say, distribute my books. One time Prabhupada made a very profound statement. Srila Prabhupada said, these book distribution scores are keeping me alive. Very powerful statement. These book distribution scores are keeping me alive. One time one disciple, he was in Europe and he wrote a letter to Prabhupada that Prabhupada, this is a foreign land. We are coming first time to Europe and the book distribution is working fantastic. Srila Prabhupada, we have set up a table and to one side of the table we have kept Mahaprasadam and to the other side of the table we have kept the books. So my dear Prabhupada, the people come, they have prasadam which is free, they take plate in their hand, the hand is completely full. And now they come to your books and they start reading them and they start purchasing. Prabhupada, this plan is working. Prasadam is entering and they are purchasing books. Prabhupada wrote back, this is my mission. Their hand should be full and their pocket should be empty. Prabhupada would be so wise the way he would articulate things. This is my mission. The hand should be full, the pocket should be empty. And Prabhupada disciples are so intelligent that they come up with different techniques, even now and even in the past, to spread Krishna consciousness. And the benefit is we are reaping those benefits. They did the struggle and we are reaping the benefits. But the point here that our acharyas explain is this Krishna Katha which is already sweet. If conditioned jivas find Katha sweet, how sweet it is for those who are very advanced. Lord Shiva, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya explains, Lord Shiva decides to leave Kailas to come to Navadvip to hear Gaur Katha from the lotus lips of Suta Goswami. That same Suta Goswami who spoke Bhagavatam at Naimisharanya again ends up speaking Gaur Katha at Naimisharanya, but this is not that Naimisharanya. In Navadvip, there is another Naimisharanya. So Suta Goswami ends up speaking Gaur Bhagavat, Gaur Katha at Naimisharanya in the land of Navadvip. And Lord Shiva, when he hears this, is ready to leave Kailas and is ready to come down. So much so that when Lord Shiva is coming, who is the order carrier of Lord Shiva? Nandi. He sits on Nandi and he is coming. And at one point he realized that this Nandi is very slow. If this is the way Nandi is going to go, I fear that Katha will end. I will reach only for Prasadam. Even Lord Shiva has that anxiety. Reaching at the end for Prasadam. You see, I always say this. In ISKCON temples, for Katha you have about 50. For Prasadam you have about 100. The number completely doubles. And from where it doubles, even we don't know. But the number completely doubles. So Lord Shiva was coming in the Nandi. And he understood that Nandi is very slow. So he parked his Nandi. He just kept the Nandi to the side. And he went to Brahmaji. And he asked Brahmaji that, my dear Brahmaji, my order carrier is very slow, but you have an order carrier which is swan, Hamsa. You have a swan. Anyway, you are meditating, the eyes are closed, and you are not using the swan. If you give the swan to me, I will sit on the swan and I can go to Naimisharanya in Navadvip and hear Gaur Katha from Suta Goswami. So Brahmaji agreed. And Lord Shiva sits on the back of the swan and ends up going to Navadvip and hears Gaur Katha for 7 days, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. So, Lord Shiva, who is Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, is so eager that he leaves Kailas and comes down to hear Gaur Katha. Narottam Das Thakur decides to leave up his aristocratic, rich, opulent life after hearing Krishna Katha from the sadhu who came to his village. Vamshidas Babaji Maharaj decides to leave his wife and 6-month-old child just by the power of hearing Krishna Katha. Doesn't mean we take inspiration, but Vamshidas Babaji gives up his life. And Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj is ready to fight the demoniac forces sent by his father just by the power of Krishna Katha that he heard from Narad Muni. So if conditioned living entities find it attractive, how much more attractive and sweet it is for those who are very exalted. And this is why our acharyas say Krishna Katha is like digestive fire. Digestive fire. Before eating we have the digestive fire. The digestive fire has a quality, it has a property. It burns the unwanted substance, but it absorbs the nutrients. It doesn't burn the nutrients. It absorbs the nutrients but burns the unwanted substance. Similarly, our acharyas say Krishna Katha is like digestive fire. It burns the anarthas but helps us absorb in this mood of being the servant of the servant of the servant. It helps us absorb in this mood of Krishna's eternal devotees, that is the Brajavasis. But when this Krishna Katha is not heard, just like our Acharya said, when Krishna Katha is heard, the doors of the spiritual world fly open for that person. But when Krishna Katha is not heard, equally the doors of the lower planets fly open for that person. Yamaraj will give us a red carpet, VIP entry, if a person does not hear Krishna Katha. So just by hearing Krishna Katha, the doors of spiritual world fly open. And likewise, by not hearing Krishna Katha, by not engaging the ears in hearing about the Supreme Lord, the doors of the lower planets, the hell, gets opened. Srila Prabhupada arrived in Heathrow Airport, London. And you see, whenever Prabhupada arrives, they would mob Prabhupada. The reporters would mob Prabhupada with all the questions. So they started asking and bombarding Prabhupada with different questions. And one of the questions that the reporter asked Prabhupada is, Swamiji, can you define hell? No, this is not the time you give a Bhagavatam class. They're there in the airport. And Prabhupada has only 30 seconds to answer. Now, if we just put ourselves in the place and if we are asked, we will probably think for some time, how do you define hell in 30 seconds? When they asked that, Swamiji, how do you define hell? Prabhupada said, hell, it is cold, dark and gloomy, just like your London. Prabhupada would have such wonderful, brilliant answers and on the spot. It is cold, dark and gloomy, just like your London. And she didn't have any answer. Well, that is true. Hell is cold, it is dark and it is gloomy. Of course, Prabhupada can give answers like that. We better not try. It will really backfire. Like Prabhupada would always say, I can say it, you cannot say it. Prabhupada had that adhikar and the spiritual ability and realization to say that. So the point is, when Krishna Katha is heard, the doors fly open. But when Krishna Katha is not heard, the doors of the lower planets also fly open for that person. So it is not baffling to see when so many people in the past have lived their family life. Narottam Das Thakur, Vamshidas Babaji Maharaj, Lord Shiva and so many others have left. It is not difficult to understand and believe why Vishwarup left his family life and accepted sannyas. Few days back we celebrated Vishwarup Mahotsav. In fact, this whole week was so auspicious. We had Ekadashi, Vaman Dwadashi, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's appearance, Haridas Thakur's disappearance. It's anything else? Prabhupada took sannyas. Yes, Vishwarup Mahotsav. Bhadra Purnima. Yes. Anything else? I think we covered us. 7 days, all 7 festivals are done. Sunday feast. So whole week was packed with festivals. And as Prabhupada would say, every step is a dance and every day is a festival. And this is actual proof. This whole week, every day was a festival. One time, one person came to Prabhupada and he said, Swamiji, what if at the end of life you realize that Krishna doesn't exist? What if you realize that you did so many things, at the end Krishna doesn't exist? Prabhupada said, even if Krishna didn't exist, there is nothing to lose, because every day we celebrated a festival. Akshay, Tritiya, Chaturthi, maybe Ganesh Chaturthi. Even Ganesha is worship of nectar of devotion, explains. Even in Radha Gopinath we find there is photo of Lord Ganesha. So Akshay Tritiya, Ganesh Chaturthi, Panchami, Vasant Panchami. I was at one place and I asked that what is there for Panchami, and one devotee in the audience put his hand up and said, Prabhuji, Nag Panchami. I said, Nag Panchami is not, that is not a Gaudiya festival. Narsimha Chaturdashi. So we are at 5. 6. Lalita Shashti, yes. 7. Advaita Saptami. 8. Radhashtami. 9. Ram Navami and Sita Navami. 10. Vijayadashmi. 11. Ekadashi. ये तो पता है. 11 Ekadashi. 12. Vaman Dwadashi. 13. Nityananda Trayodashi. 14. Narsimha Chaturdashi. And 15. Sharad Purnima. Bhadra Purnima. Purnima is 15. Huh? Gaur Purnima. Yes, Gaura Purnima. So every day is literally a festival. Every step is dance and every day is festival. So he came to Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, what if you realize at the end Krishna doesn't exist? Prabhupada said, even if Krishna doesn't exist, there is nothing lost. We have had Sunday feast, Saturday feast, Prasadam, Vaman Dwadashi, Narsimha Chaturdashi, Gaur Purnima, Nityananda Trayodashi, Ram Navami, Sita Navami, Lalita Shashti, Advaita Saptami. Every day was a festival. So even if Krishna doesn't exist, still we have enjoyed. Now I flip the question. What if at the end you realize Krishna actually exists? आप तो फंस गए. You are gone. If you realize Krishna actually exists, your game is up. You cannot do anything. Which is true. Even if hypothetically, well, we are convinced Krishna exists, but hypothetically, even if he doesn't exist, still there is no wrong. We have enjoyed our life to the fullest. But if Krishna really exists, then that person who is not performing, his game is up. Yamaraj will be waiting with a garland to welcome him. Aja, red carpet, VIP entry. So Krishna Katha has to be heard as much as possible. So we find by hearing this Katha of Advaita Acharya, Vishwarup started developing Virakti. As Acharyas explained, Jnana and Vairag are the byproducts. Knowledge and renunciation comes naturally. We don't have to force it. We don't have to artificially force it. It comes naturally. When we advance, renunciation is a byproduct. And we see Vishwarup ended up leaving his family and accepted sannyas. But sometimes we find most people, when we were coming in the car also, Kush Prabhu and I, we were discussing that sometimes when we are preaching, there are a few people who naturally accept Srimad Bhagavatam. They will not ask questions. They will naturally accept. And some will keep asking questions. Why is this like this? Why not like that? Why is Krishna blue? Why is Mahaprabhu golden? Why is Ram green? So on and so forth. Some people keep asking questions. The good thing is if you ask questions and you become a devotee, then great. But if you just keep asking questions and there is no end result, then that's a problem. One time, so the point I'm saying is people are into logic and debates and questions and answers and things like that. One time there was a logician and he was into asking questions for everything. So a logician went to a farmer and this farmer had a bull and in the neck he had put a small bell. So the logician asked, why have you put this bell for the bull? Bell for the bull. Why have you put the bell for the bull? And the farmer said, well, I put the bell because whenever the bull walks, I will understand. By hearing the sound, if I am working, I will understand that the bull is walking. So the logician said, what if the bull is standing at one place and just moving its head? So the farmer said, it is a bull, not a logician like you. He will not do it. He is a bull, not a logician like you. So people are into logic and questions and answers. But if they take it up, it's good. If they don't take it up, then it's little difficult. So Vishwarup, we find, gets so renounced that ends up leaving his family and accepts sannyas. And naturally, when the older brother does something, it serves as an inspiration for the younger brother. When the older brother does something, the younger brother is inspired. I can say it from experience. In a good way. In a good way. If my dear brother Amarendra Prabhu is watching, in a good way. I am glorifying. Definitely, I'm definitely glorifying. It definitely serves as an inspiration. I can, with hands on my heart, I can say, when I was small, I could see him naturally into verses and reading and hearing, etc. So it just helps when two brothers are inclined. It inspires the younger brother to take it up naturally. So we find Vishwarup accepted sannyas, and now that served as an inspiration for his brother, who is Vishwambar Mishra. That is Mahaprabhu's passport name, Vishwambar Mishra. When Mahaprabhu is traveling, immigration, Vishwambar Mishra. Jagannath Mishra's son, Vishwambar Mishra. It served as an inspiration from him also, and he ended up taking sannyas. And Srila Prabhupada, being the right representative of Vishwarup and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, also took sannyas on the day of Vishwarup Mahotsav. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai! The day when Vishwarup accepted sannyas, Vishwarup Mahotsav, Prabhupada chose that special day, bringing down the tradition of sannyas in our sampradaya, and Srila Prabhupada accepted sannyas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas on Makar Sankranti, while Vishwarup accepted sannyas on Vishwarup Mahotsav. So Prabhupada accepted sannyas on the day of Vishwarup Mahotsav. And it is very interesting that Srila Prabhupada got down the sannyas tradition and also gave it to his disciples. But there's a very interesting point that comes up. This is the last 10 minutes of our discussion. There is a very interesting point comes up as to Srila Prabhupada giving the sannyas tradition down in the sampradaya. Up until this time, if we were not attentive, it's still okay. But these last 10 minutes is a very interesting story I got to hear when I was in New Vrindavan recently. I was speaking to a few Prabhupada disciples there, and they told me this story, and I was so inspired that I couldn't hold myself, but I wanted to share it. When Srila Prabhupada came to America, 17th of September 1965, on the Jaladuta, Boston Harbor, Commonwealth Pier, Srila Prabhupada landed. On the 18th of September, that same ship, Jaladuta, was again going back to India, because it was a cargo ship. So it was again going back to India, and two American boys hopped onto that ship, Keith and Howard. They hopped onto that ship with this desire of exploring the religions of the East, because they had heard that India is a place where there is so much variegated culture and religion, and it's easy for spiritual advancement. So the heart's desire was there. So they hopped on to this Jaladuta to go to India to check. Prabhupada lands on 17th September. These two boys, teens, 18th of September, they hop on the Jaladuta and they go to India. They stay in India for 1 year in the search of Guru. But they don't get Guru. They get only can gurus. They get gurus who keep can ahead for money. Can gurus. You see people around, they have gurus who keep dakshina thing and you put money. But they will not give you any spiritual knowledge. Can guru. So they didn't get proper bona fide gurus. And on top of that, the weather, the food, the water, it was foreign for them. Especially we find those who are not accustomed to the Indian culture, when you go for the first time, you will naturally experience some transcendental symptoms. Some ecstasies will be there. Romanchakam Shrotaranga Bhajo. Ecstasy will be there if you are not used to it. So these two boys, 1 year, they had a big challenge. They couldn't eat properly, they would puke, water would not work out, and after 1 year they became so frustrated that they decided to come back to America. No more spirituality, let's just come back. So they came back to America and they were walking in the streets of Manhattan, New York. As they were walking to the other side, they saw Prabhupada walking. Prabhupada with his stick, Prabhupada was walking. So they saw and they decided to cross. And they looked and said, Swamiji, because they didn't know Prabhupada. So they knew Indian gurus are called Swami. They said, Swamiji, are you from India? Prabhupada said, yes. See, Prabhupada had a very regal way of saying, yes. Typical Srila Prabhupada. He would say, yes, I am from India. They said, are you a guru? Prabhupada said, yes, I am a guru. So these two boys said, Swamiji, we were actually in India. We just came. Prabhupada said, why? They said that we had gone to search for guru, but we didn't get anything. So disappointed, we have again come back. So Prabhupada said, I take Bhagavad Gita classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I am a guru, so I can help you. So why don't you all come for my Gita classes? By this time, Prabhupada had already found out at 26 2nd Avenue, the storefront, Matchless Gifts. So these two boys said, yes, Swamiji, we will come. Prabhupada said, not like this. Prabhupada held their hand and took them to 26 2nd Avenue. Prabhupada said, you will say yes now, but what if tomorrow you start searching and you don't know where to come? No GPS. Alexa Mataji is not there, Siri Mataji is not there. Who will help? So Prabhupada held the hand and said, I will take you. So tomorrow you know where to come. So Prabhupada held the hand, took these two boys, and these two boys said, yes, Swamiji, tomorrow we will come. Next day, they actually came. They came for Prabhupada's class, and Prabhupada was very happy to see them. And Prabhupada's class, someone not being inspired, ho nahi sakta, cannot happen. So they were naturally inspired. They heard Prabhupada once, and they got inspired. And then after that, Prabhupada was in a conversation with them. Prabhupada asked, what do you do? And Howard, he said that, Prabhupada, I have a master's in English literature. And Prabhupada's eyes lit up. Prabhupada said, what? You have masters in English? Can you help me? Can you help me proofread my books? Can you help me edit my books? Because Prabhupada was very scholarly as far as Sanskrit is concerned, but he wanted a local to check for the English grammar, someone who can proofread. So Howard said that, Swamiji, let me come few more times and then we will see. Prabhupada said, I can teach you what the content is. I can teach you everything. So he said to Prabhupada, I will come few more times and then we will see. So Prabhupada did not force. Prabhupada never forced. When the heart is inspired, we see the person does it naturally. But when you force it, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time they will drift away. So Prabhupada started speaking to them. They started coming to the classes. And eventually Howard and Keith got so inspired that Prabhupada now again asked, can you help me in editing my books, checking the grammar? And Howard said, yes, Prabhupada, now I will do it because I know what the content is. And Prabhupada initiated both these teens, and Keith became Kirtanananda and Howard became Hayagriva Prabhu. Kirtanananda Maharaj and Hayagriva Prabhu. Hayagriva Prabhu becomes the first editor in our ISKCON movement. Prabhupada empowered him, trusted him, gave him the content, was always ready to hold his hand in every step. And Prabhupada empowered, and he became the first editor of our ISKCON movement. And everything was going picture perfect. But what to do? The past temptations are like forest fire, and they sometimes come and devour our Krishna Bhakti completely. The past temptations prior to joining Krishna consciousness, it's very difficult to give them up. And sometimes like a forest fire, they're blazing in the heart, and they just come and completely dissipate whatever Krishna consciousness we have in the heart. And exactly the same thing happened for Hayagriva Prabhu. Hayagriva Prabhu, who was the first editor, got inspired by Prabhupada. The past temptations took control like a forest fire, and now he drifted away from the movement. He drifted away, not to be seen. And when Prabhupada got to know, Prabhupada had a tear in his eye. Prabhupada said, what? Hayagriva left? Because Hayagriva Prabhu was also working at NYU. And from that stipend, from that salary, he would give the rent for 26 2nd Avenue for Prabhupada. So he helped Prabhupada like no one, whether it's editing, whether it is giving money. And now that Prabhupada got to know that he left, Prabhupada, his heart was bleeding. Finally, after about 2 years, Prabhupada was at Hawaii. And Prabhupada got to know that Hayagriva Prabhu is here in Hawaii. So he told Tamal Krishna Maharaj to bring Hayagriva Prabhu. Hayagriva Prabhu came. And gone were those days, gone was the dhoti kurta, now it was the karmi clothes, gone was the shaven clean face, now he had a beard, gone was the complete shaven head, he had hair, he had beard, he had karmi clothes, completely new person, gone was the tilak, a complete new appearance. But Prabhupada's love for him had not reduced. Prabhupada still loved him the same way that he used to love. And when Prabhupada saw him, Prabhupada had tears in his eyes. And Hayagriva, where were you? You were my first editor. Where were you? And seeing that love of Srila Prabhupada, Hayagriva Prabhu just broke down completely. He completely broke down. And Srila Prabhupada asked, whatever happened in the past is the past. Do you want to join me again? Do you want to do some service? And Hayagriva Prabhu said, yes, Prabhupada, I will again help you. So he asked Prabhupada, how can I serve? Prabhupada said, same service that you were doing, editing my books. Hayagriva Prabhu said, Prabhupada, how can I do it? I was finding it difficult to even hold on to the regulative principles, and your books are going to be the law books for the next 10,000 years. I cannot do it. Prabhupada said, no, if you're there around with Tamal Krishna Maharaj and others, they will inspire you and you can do it. And Prabhupada again trusted him and gave him the service. And he again started editing Srila Prabhupada's books, checking for the grammar, proofreading. When he came back again in 1969, it was Hayagriva Prabhu who was instrumental in finding the New Vrindavan property. He found out the New Vrindavan property. And now when Prabhupada got to know that Hayagriva Prabhu was found out, Prabhupada wanted to make Hayagriva Prabhu the temple president. He wanted to make him the temple president. And Hayagriva Prabhu said, he knew that Prabhupada is going to ask this. So he made all the reasoning. If Prabhupada says this, I will say this. Prabhupada says this, I will say this. Making sure that I don't want to take temple responsibilities or management responsibilities. It can get difficult sometimes. So he decided one after another, I will give these reasons to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada called him and said, my dear Hayagriva, I have one service for you. And he was convinced Prabhupada is going to say, Hayagriva Prabhu, become the temple president. He was convinced. And his answer was literally there in the tip of his tongue. He was waiting when Prabhupada will say and when I can refute it. Prabhupada said, my dear Hayagriva, my service for you is, I want you to become sannyasi. Hayagriva Prabhu said, what? This came as a googly. I thought of temple president, Prabhupada is saying sannyasi. He said, Prabhupada, no. Sannyas? I had left. 2 times I had left. Sannyas, no. Prabhupada said, no, if you're there with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Jayadvaita Maharaj, Satswarup Maharaj, because they were very prominent during those days. They still are. If you stay with them, you can hold on. Hayagriva Prabhu said, Prabhupada, sannyas, Tridanda sannyas, I cannot do it. Prabhupada said, no, you can do it. You can keep writing letters to me and you can take inspiration, and they are all there. Hayagriva Prabhu said, Prabhupada, I cannot. You ask me to do any other service, I will do, not this. Prabhupada said, good, become temple president. Krishna Bhakta A bada chatur. Prabhupada was very intelligent. He tricked Hayagriva Prabhu and Hayagriva Prabhu had no answer. Srila Prabhupada ki! Srila Prabhupada pastimes are madhuram madhurebhyopi. They are very sweet. So now Hayagriva Prabhu had no option. So now he became the temple president. He found out the property and Prabhupada made him the temple president. But what to do, dear devotees? These past temptations never stop haunting for some. They again came back like a blazing forest fire. And sadly, Hayagriva Prabhu again left. He again left. And this time that he left, he was not to be found for a very, very, very long time. Srila Prabhupada, 1977, he departed, and Hayagriva Prabhu was not there. And Prabhupada was having tears. My first editor, he gave for the 26th Avenue the rent, and now he is not here. Prabhupada had tears of compassion. Where did Hayagriva Prabhu go? And no one knew where Hayagriva Prabhu is. No one had any idea. Finally, 1989, after about 17 years, in fact even that 1972 famous India Yatra that Prabhupada took to Vrindavan, Hayagriva Prabhu was there. The lectures that Prabhupada gave in the courtyard of Radha Damodar Mandir, just as an FYI, if we have not heard, ISKCON Desire, there are a series of classes that Prabhupada gave on the nectar of devotion in the courtyard of Radha Damodar 1972 Kartik. If we have not heard, we have to hear it. Those classes of Prabhupada are unbelievable. Unbelievable classes, 1972 Kartik, Radha Damodar Mandir on nectar of devotion. It's there on ISKCON Desire. So just as a side point, whenever we get time, maybe this Kartik or whenever, please make sure we hear those classes. Very deep and very profound and very instructive. So in that yatra also Hayagriva Prabhu was there, but after that he again drifted. Next 17 years he was not to be seen. So 1972 plus 17, 89. 1989, Srinath Ji Prabhu, ND Desai, Dr. ND Desai, Radha Gopinath, he got to know that Hayagriva Prabhu is wandering and loitering in the beaches of Goa. So he went, and you see during rainy season, whenever there's a beach during rainy season, the boats are upside down so that water doesn't accumulate. The boats are kept upside down. Underneath one of those boats, Hayagriva Prabhu, like semicircular back, was hiding. Not hiding, but just taking rest because it was raining. And Srinath Ji Prabhu, he saw and said, Hayagriva Prabhu, where have you been? It's been so many years, we have been looking out for you, where have you been? Please come, we have a congregation, Radha Gopinath, we have a congregation, please come. Those days Radha Gopinath was just budding, 1989, 1990. And Hayagriva Prabhu said, I can't get up. I can't get up, leave alone walking, I can't even get up. Srinath Ji Prabhu said, you at least come with us. We will do some tests and we will see what the issue is. So they took him. They did some tests. And it was revealed he had terminal 4, stage 4 terminal cancer. So much so that he had become paraplegic below the waist. Cannot walk, cannot move, nothing. They brought him to Radha Gopinath. But now that he again came back, he came back with redoubled enthusiasm. Setbacks should always be like springboards. They should come, we have to come back with redoubled enthusiasm. Just like Hayagriva Prabhu's life, our life also goes through ups and downs, waves of sometimes being enthused and sometimes not being enthused. Sometimes wanting to chant more japa, sometimes even 16 is a struggle. Sometimes wanting to do more Vaishnava Seva and sometimes not wanting to do anything. So we also fluctuate. And Hayagriva Prabhu's life is something that we can kind of relate to. He comes back with redoubled enthusiasm. And now that he came back, he literally followed a Vyartha Kalatvam. He would not waste any time. Every second that he had, he was chanting. He would hear Krishna book. While honoring prasadam, devotees would read Krishna book. While sleeping at night, devotees would read Krishna book. He would hear the lectures of Prabhupada. He would chant. Because there was nothing more he could do at this stage. Because he was paraplegic. Srila Radhanath Swami Maharaj at that time came to meet Hayagriva Prabhu. And this is so sweet. Srila Radhanath Maharaj came to meet Hayagriva Prabhu. And in the course of the discussion, Hayagriva Prabhu told Srila Radhanath Maharaj that, my dear Maharaj, there is one regret that I have in my heart. And Maharaj said, what is it? Hayagriva Prabhu said, I could have served Prabhupada so much when I was young. Prabhupada would request, he would beg me to edit and proofread his books, but I was somehow drifting away, coming back, drifting away, coming back. Maharaj, I could have served so much. I had youth on my side, I had energy, I had air in my lungs. I could have served Prabhupada so much. He would ask me so much. But I just drifted away. And as he was saying this to Srila Radhanath Maharaj, tears were just flowing from his eyes. I could have served my Guru Maharaj so much, but I couldn't do it. And now, the regret, the guilt in the heart was so much that now his enthusiasm in bhakti peaked to the limit and constant absorption. Finally, he told Srila Radhanath Maharaj that Maharaj, there is nothing I can do to Prabhupada at this stage. I cannot do deity worship. I cannot go out for Nam Sankirtan. I cannot serve classes. I cannot mop the floor. I cannot cook prasadam for the devotees. I cannot do anything. But if there is one thing I can do right now to please Prabhupada, is, my dear Maharaj, there was one instruction that he gave me in 1969, but I backed out. I said I am not qualified. My dear Maharaj, this is one instruction that I can follow right now and fulfill at least one desire, one dream of Prabhupada. Maharaj, in 1969, Prabhupada asked me to take sannyas. I couldn't do it back then. Maharaj, if you are kind, please award me sannyas. We are talking about this because we were talking about Vishwarup accepting sannyas. Vishwarup accepting sannyas probably was a smooth process. Mahaprabhu, we may say, oh, he is Bhagavan. Prabhupada, we may say, oh, he is Acharya. Sometimes you see, we take away the credit of Prabhupada by always saying he is Acharya, he is Acharya. Well, yes, he is Acharya, but he also went through the human struggle, which we cannot forget. But Hayagriva Prabhu's life serves as hope for all of us. He went through the struggles, the waves of emotions, calamities, anxieties, being drifted away, sometimes being enthused, sometimes not being enthused. But it gives all of us hope that Krishna consciousness, if performed even once, and even if we drift away, we may forget Krishna, Krishna will never forget us. Krishna will never forget us. Krishna always remembers. So Hayagriva Prabhu eventually got sannyas from Srila Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and he became Hayagriva Maharaj. And when New Vrindavan devotees were saying this, they were saying that during the final days, during the last few days, he was here in New Vrindavan. And even now, the devotees who have been to New Vrindavan will find there is Samadhi of Hayagriva Prabhu or Hayagriva Maharaj. So his life went through ups and downs and obstacles, but gives us hope that even if there are struggles, even if we are going through difficulties, even if we are going through challenges of chanting 16, getting up in the morning, serving devotees, being enthused on this path, Krishna is there. And Krishna will protect us. Krishna will give us the inspiration. All that is required is sincerity. Even if we showed an iota of sincerity, Krishna will make sure that we come back on this path of Krishna consciousness. So Hayagriva Prabhu's life serves as inspiration for all of us as to how he went through ups and downs, but eventually accepted the path of sannyas. Having said this, I very humbly want to stop here and thank each and every devotee present here. Thank you so much for coming and inspiring me with your presence. And I can't wait to come back again to serve all of y'all and serve Shri Radha Nattabur in the best of ability that I can. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare. A little late. One other question somebody asked. Yes.
Thank you for the wonderful class. So you described a lot about how the process of Krishna Bhakti will work. We have to just take to it very seriously. Sometimes our faith dwindles, our mind has all this chatter and our faith dwindles. How do we pick ourselves up after our faith dwindles?
Hare Krishna. So, very fundamental. Thank you so much. Very common question, which is not there just with the youth, but it happens with the adults also. Every human being goes through emotions, and this is something where we find sometimes we're enthused and sometimes we are down. Sometimes we're really down and it's very difficult to come back. This is why Narottam Das Thakur always, he makes this point. Eka ke amar nahi paye bala harinama sankirtane tumi kripa kore shada bindu deya Deho Krishna Namadhane. Eka ki amar nahi payable. In Kali, individually it is next to impossible to get Krishna. When we are alone, Srila Prabhupada would always say, when we are alone, the mind only thinks of two things, wine and women. Srila Prabhupada would always say this, when you are alone and there are no devotees around, the mind takes you for a world tour. And it's a free world tour. But mind thinks of only these two things. So Narottam Das Thakur time and again he says, Eka ki amar nahi payable. We have to simply be honest and admit that I individually have no strength to perform Krishna consciousness. Individually, I cannot pick myself up. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Kai, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives this very profound verse, which is the seed of Krishna consciousness. When there is Sadhu Sangha, then there is Bhajan Kriya. When there is Sadhu Sangha, then there is Anartha Nivritti. Then Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhav, Prem. But it starts with being around devotees. The more we are around devotees, the more the heart is surcharged. And the more we go away, I can do it alone. I don't have to go for a Sunday feast. I will watch it on YouTube. We always say we may watch it on YouTube, but it does not have that effect of coming together personally. Last 2 years during Zoom we saw that. We may hear classes, but we don't get that vibe of coming together, devotee sangha. So as much as possible we have to make sure we are there close-knit around devotees. The more we are there around devotees, devotees will make sure we are inspired. Whether we want or not, they will infuse our heart with enthusiasm. But the more we go away, the more difficult it is. We are adding more problems to our Krishna consciousness. So this is one thumb rule that our acharyas say. Ekakiyamar nahi payabol. Always stay around devotees and serve devotees and become the recipient of their mercy. By their mercy, heart becomes enthused. Helps? Hare Krishna.